Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Combat Exchange podcast, and this is Prashant. I'm joined by my co-host and friend, National MMA Champion and IMAF representative for India, Karan Chauhan. Hi, Karan.
Hi, Prashant. Thank you. Thank you for having me today. Thank you, Vaibhav, for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have with us Vaibhav Shetty, who was, give me some time to read out all his accomplishments because there are a lot of them. So he has been an MMA India representative for the Asian Open in 2019, where he was a quarter-finalist, and at the 2019 MMA IMAF World Championships, where he went to Bahrain with Team India, and he was a bronze medalist at the IMAF Oceania Open Championship in 2020. He also has several medals in BJJ at the ASJJF Asian Open 2019, where he won a gold medal in the no-gi open weight category, where he won a silver medal in the gi medium heavyweight category, and he won a silver medal in the gi open weight category as well. Vaibhav, thanks for being here. And before I forget, his most recent and most notable accomplishment is where he became the WKN International Champion at Super Light Heavyweight recently. First Indian to ever do that. And the belt looks fucking cool. Vaibhav, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for having me.
Vaibhav, there seems to be so many fights that you've been in, tournaments that you've been in. How old do you feel now? Or how young do you feel now?
Good. I'm already quite old. I'm much older than the guy right now. Yeah, but every fight makes me feel a lot younger. Right. Not immediately after the fight, but yeah. The moment you win, and a week after that, you feel a lot younger. Yeah.
Right. And how does it feel? I'm just getting right into it. How does it feel now compared to when you were younger, when you used to fight when you were young? How does it feel now? What are the reactions your body gives you, or the response your body gives you while training and in the fight as well?
Right. So very honestly, I started very late in the game. I started after I was 30. Okay. So I can't benchmark to what I would have felt when I was in my 20s.
Right.
But yeah, as the 30s are progressing, I am definitely feeling, my body is getting a little slower. Recovery takes a little longer, but more importantly, it's the weight cuts.
Okay.
Weight cuts don't come as easy as they used to earlier. And it's just your body, right now, as you get older, it's probably a little more difficult to cut weight as maybe a 20-year-old would. So, but yeah, I think, the more I keep doing this, the more I get used to it. And it's a process you enjoy. I mean, it can be torture days leading up to the fight, but you enjoy every moment of it. Yeah.
Right. And today when people address you, do they address you as a karate guy or as a BJJ guy or as a kickboxer? What do they address you
We were just talking about it. I
was just telling Karan, like the other day, I came back from Australia with the Oceania Open bronze medal. And one of my neighbors, she was walking with her mother-in-law and she's like, yes, sir, karate karte.
Okay.
And when I go to my clients, some of my clients do know I do martial arts, but they have no idea what MMA is. So then they tell each other, ye boxing karta hai, kickboxing karta hai.
Okay.
And jiu-jitsu is not in the vocabulary for anybody anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
So it lies in the eyes of the beholder then.
Yeah. So I try not to correct them. I said, okay, fine. Whatever you say.
Right.
After a while of explaining to people what you do, you just go with whatever the fuck they say.
The easiest way that used to work for me is apne Sultan dikhaya kya.
Oh yeah.
Sultan then nothing else.
Okay. So Vaibhav, tell me, how do you manage being a dad? How do you balance all of that, being a husband, being a dad, and fighting and working in the corporate world? You told me the other day was that you've been in the corporate world for over 10 years.
Yeah.
Straight out of college. Fresh out of... Fuck. Seriously. Tell us a little bit about how you balance everything, because as you get older, it can't get easier to manage family life with fighting.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Very honestly, right now, and I'm in the senior management of kind of role in my career as far as my job goes. And when you're in that, you're not taking a lot of execution roles yourself. You have a team of people working for you, and you're more managing those team rather than doing things yourself. So that way, work to manage, delegate, work my way around, to make time for both the family and my training. But weekends are a little difficult because weekends are when you have time for the family, but weekends are also when you have time for training. And that's why that becomes a little more difficult. And it's my wife being cooperative, and sometimes there's a bit of give and take from both sides.
Right.
But you have to do that. Unless you do that, then maybe you can manage.
But talk to us a little bit about how you got into doing jiu-jitsu and into doing anime.
I was into martial arts way back, back in school. I was a part of NCC. I was part of the leadership camp in NCC where they did teach us hand-to-hand combat. I was part of the karate. Because way back then, this was in the 90s, karate was the only martial art. And taekwondo was just pretty mature. It was just karate. Karate quite a bit back then. But then there was this huge gap. And I had my kid, and I realized as my kid was growing old, about 1 year old, I realized every time I hold him and move around, I'm quite unfit. I used to huff and puff. And I realized, I realized this is not going to work. Something is off. And Cult had their, the first center close to my house. And this was before they got taken over and became a giant, machinery they are. And they had MMA, and they had guys fighting for the fight league. So I went there, and in person I tried the various CrossFit workouts they had, the MMA workouts they had. MMA and boxing, incredible trainers. Sachin Panwa, who was fighting in the Super Fight League. Asif was right now the Oceania champion. He was the boxing coach there. He still is. And you guys just got into it with me. And and they have the kind of passion which rubs off on you. So I was 6 months in, and I was going 2 hours every day, 1 hour for boxing, 1 hour MMA. And back then I had a startup of my own, so I had a little more time than what I have right now. So I could spend that time. 6 months in, they said, you know what, just go and compete. Yoga dekha jayega, jaake compete karo. I think we have this. You
just threw yourself off the deep end.
Just? I'm sorry?
You just threw yourself off the deep end.
Yeah. So they said, just see, how you feel and see how your skills come out in a ring. And how it went against Riaz. It went fairly well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Prashant, can you please pull this bout up on YouTube? If you can share the screen and pull this bout up. I don't want to go any further without actually highlighting this man's skills and about his composure under fire. As this fight goes on, please walk us through this fight. What are you thinking, and what do you think? What do you think in each position that you get into right now?
Right. So at this
you're
point,
not thinking at all. Okay.
At this point, I'm petrified. It was first time in the ring.
Okay.
But the idea was to try and see if I can get a takedown right off the bat, which I tried immediately here. Didn't work out very well, and tried, and then decided, you know what? Let's just start exchanging.
Right. Just balls to the wall.
So the thing was, just keep one head up and keep countering whenever I could, because he was basically, you could see his punches coming a mile away.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. He's telegraphing all the way from back.
Yeah. But at this point, he did connect, and it shook me a bit, which is why I had to cover up a bit.
Okay.
And then I went back to my original plan, try and take him down. So here I have him, and his weight is on me. So I decided to just roll back and, get on top of him.
Yeah. That's a very smart thing to do, to take somebody down who doesn't know what he's doing on the ground. And you see over here that he's completely lost. Yeah.
Just found him. And very honestly, at this point, I did not know how a TKO worked. So my thing was, let me just pound him to the round ends. But
okay.
I took the win there.
Oh,
I see the tantrum he throws.
Pissed off.
This is the tantrum he throws. It's like when I took my nephew to my wedding the other day.
He's good. There's another hand going to be raised, and he's so. He's stomping, dude.
Yeah,
Isn't there any yellow card or red card that you give in the cage on these levels?
If you do that, then people will start diving, man. Like in football.
So wow,
yeah.
That was a great fight.
But yeah, for the first fight,
that was my favorite fight of ever.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I love that as well, man. For the first fight, and I know not the most technical fight you would see, but yeah, I was petrified getting in there and getting that win. Was pretty good. a good feeling.
What impressed me the most about this fight was your composure under fire. How did you work on that? I mean, of course, being having that jiu-jitsu background and doing what you do in jiu-jitsu, being so well versed in jiu-jitsu, you have to have a little courage under fire. Not a little. It takes a lot to use your brains when you're in that position. But since somebody's caught you in a guillotine, it's very hard to get out of a position like that. So, what do you do to calm your mind down?
And this was way before I started jiu-jitsu. This was just MMA. I had no idea.
Really? Really?
I started 7 months after this. But at that point, the body just went into auto mode. I was just
really.
So my whole objective in this ring, very honestly, at that point was to survive. And the only way I could see surviving was to basically go on the offense. And again, like I said, punch coming from a mile away.
Right.
So made sense to keep trying to counter that or throw punches. Again, not the most technical punches like Asif and all. They were not happy because Asif taught me like pure hardcore boxing.
Yeah.
Left, right.
Yeah.
But it worked for me. So I was happy with that.
But good, it worked for you because you can't try and use technique against the technician. I mean, he's not a technician, but if you tried to use technique, you probably have gotten knocked out. So I'm glad that you made it a fight. I'm glad you made it a fight and you clinched with him as soon as you possibly could. Very smart thing to do. Tell us a little bit about how you got into jiu-jitsu.
Well, a few months after this, I went to Body Power. There I lost in the semi-finals. And then I had this fight in Bangalore against Ashwin Naidu, who I fought again for the WKN title. And there, Ashwin, he's a very unorthodox fighter. Not the most technical, not ready to look at, but he can strike. And he's a guy who never gets knocked down. So no matter how much I hit him, he wasn't going down. And that's when, I finally won the fight with a guillotine choke. And I realized, what, I can't just be a random fighter who learns everything. I need to probably specialize in one thing. And grappling seems to work for me. Let's see if I can build on that. And that's just about the time Coach Rama, he was shifting one of his gyms closer to where I stay. So I reached out to him and tried to figure out, if we can start something. And we got together a small study group in about 4 kilometers from my place where I could go train every day.
This is Rama Reddy.
Yeah, this is Rama Reddy. And luckily for me, that's also the year 𝘭𝘰𝘳𝘐 came to India.
Oh,
and
okay.
In November that year. So 4-5 months in, and we go there and we start winning. Most of us who went there start medaling in that category.
Okay.
And I said, okay, let's go all in. And Coach Rama is a guy who doesn't give belts. I'm still a white belt in jiu-jitsu. He will just not vote you unless
you're a white belt.
Yeah, so you not only do you need to know the moves, you need to have the mentality. He's a strategic guy. What's your plan A? What's your plan B? What's your plan C? How do you transition? So he has a very elaborate curriculum to do that, which means at our level, we are always better than anybody else who's training and coming in to compete. And that carried over to MMA as well, the same mentality. So it worked for me so far. But yeah, striking suffered in that duration. And now I'm back to working on that.
Yeah, that's good, man. Talk to me a little bit about Rama Reddy. Where is he from? Where's the accent from? Did he live in the US for a while, or is he from the US?
So he grew up in the US, and he
grew up in the US. Okay.
Yeah, I think he was born there. He grew up over there, and he went to the system. He was a high school wrestler over there. And,
nice.
And he's from the Machado lineage of BJJ, so he has a brown belt from that lineage. He's good. He's extremely good. And he does teach boxing, MMA and kickboxing as well. But he's very methodical.
Right. I've seen some of his videos, yes.
And he'll break it down to you. He'll break it down into techniques, sequences, why something works, why it doesn't work. So imagine a nerd teaching you combat sports is exactly what he is.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's good. But right now, he's
Yeah. Now, Rama Reddy. What else did I want to ask you about him? Where is he currently staying right now? Like I see a lot of his videos that he's in Germany. What is he doing
Germany. So he used to run this promotion called Combat Carnival in India.
Okay.
And the reason for him to, I believe, be in India. But that I think the partner separated a few years ago. And he stayed back here for the students to run a gym to try to see what else he could do. But he got an opportunity back in Germany. Initially, he also does MMA commentary. Some promotion over there wanted him to do commentary out there. So he
Right.
moved base to Germany and he's doing other stuff over there. Commentary, teaching
Okay.
classes. Yeah. So that's his base.
Okay.
Karan is basically asking, how you got into IMAF?
Into the IMF circuit. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. So I have been competing in the national circuit, for a while, and
Right.
been reaching the semi-finals, quarterfinals, final in most of the tournaments. But I never, kind of approached the federation asking, how do we go to IMF? And very honestly, I think they thought I wasn't just interested at any point of time. So the Bangalore Open is when they openly said that, this is going to be a selection for the World Championships or the Asian Open.
Right.
Essentially. So that's when I reached out and I checked with Prasad, Prasad Pasunuri, as to what exactly would it take to qualify for IMAF. And according to him, I was already there in their minds, and I just had to reach out and figure out, whether I need to participate or not. So I said, yeah, if there is an opportunity, let me know how I can do it. And at that point, Bala had also dropped down to middleweight. So initially, they were skeptical. Should we send two people in the middleweight category to the Asian Open? And it just so happened that all other categories lower than middleweight, because one of the options that Prasad gave me is drop down to welterweight.
Ooh.
But by the time we took a call,
that's not happening. Yeah, that's not happening. Yeah.
It wasn't happening, and all the other lower weight categories, the brackets got filled up. So then, you know what? Let's just go with middleweight, and both of us went to middleweight out there.
I remember that Asian Championship in 2019, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
And
that's the one I wanted to go for as well.
Yeah.
I wanted to go for that Asian Championship as well, and I begged Prasad and I begged Sharif Bapu that to please let me go. But then featherweight was filled up, lightweight was filled up, welterweight was filled up, and bantamweight was the only weight category that was open. But I can't possibly make bantamweight anymore. Like right now, I'm walking around at 72 kgs, so I can't possibly make bantamweight even if I tried. I mean, I don't want to. It's not healthy to do that. So.
And no, they were actually keeping they were keeping a very close eye on how much weight do people cut, because I remember 𝘭𝘰𝘯𝘬 cut a lot of weight coming to the tournament, and he put videos of himself covered in towels, a few days before, and they saw that and they said, you know what, you're not fighting, you're not healthy enough to fight. Weight cut, you're not in this tournament anymore. And if they
spoke about this earlier. He spoke about this earlier on a podcast. Not to give people context, they were talking about a man called Mohammad Mokayev, who's 20 years old, fighting out of the UK, but originally from Dagestan, who's the pound for pound #1 fighter in the world, amateur fighter in the world, who's now turned pro. And they did this to him. So he had cut a massive amount of weight. So when he spoke about this earlier on a podcast, he said that in December, the December before that year, before that tournament. This tournament was in May, I believe, right?
Yes, that's right.
So so he weighed about 68 or 69 kgs the December before that May. So in 2018, he weighed in December 2018 he weighed 68 or 69 kgs, and he wanted to cut all the way down to flyweight. So he was already doing a fight camp in Phuket at Tiger MuayThai. After which he flew out to Bangkok to participate in the Asian Open. Vaibhav, have you frozen or what? Are you just looking at me very intensely?
Yeah, I guess it's frozen.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I lost you guys for a minute. Sorry, I think my network is a little choppy.
Yeah. Okay. So he had cut all the way down from 69 kgs to 56.7.
What?
Guy made weight. Yeah. And you have to make 56.7, and he had to make 56.7 across 3 days of competition.
That's more than 10% of his weight.
Yeah. Exactly. It's more than 10% of his body weight, which is why IMAF took great objection to him fighting. So 5 minutes before he was supposed to walk out to fight, he got medically cleared. He made weight. He replenished himself, and he was good to fight. Now 5 minutes before he had to walk out to fight, IMAF saw this post of his on Facebook or Instagram or somewhere that he put this post up, and they told him 5 minutes before he was supposed to walk out to fight that I can't, we can't let you fight. And he said, okay, fine, let me win this one fight, and then it's okay, I won't fight after that. Because I think that year one championship lost a fighter to weight cutting. One fighter died weight cutting. I don't know what his name was, but they lost the fighter to weight cutting. So So what one championship now does is one championship is essentially the biggest MMA promotion in Asia. So they do hydration tests. They don't
Right.
do they don't do they don't let people cut weight. So Demetrius Johnson, who was the flyweight pound for pound number one fighter in the world in the US, no, sorry, he was the pound for pound number one fighter in the world who was a flyweight. He no longer makes flyweight just because it's not good for his body. So,
but one thing also has this weird weighing system. For example, we are at middleweight at 84, right? At IMF and UFC, 84 kgs for them is welterweight.
Yeah, I know that. So every weight class is just one up, which is why they have an atomweight division, which is actually a strawweight division.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's essentially no weight cutting.
Little to no weight cutting. They little to no weight cutting. They do hydration tests.
Okay,
People do cut weight, but they don't cut massive amounts of weight like they do in the UFC. So you see guys like John Jones, who off season weighs about 250, 55 pounds, and he cuts all the way down to 205 to fight. That's 50 pounds of weight.
Right.
Of his body weight. That's 25 kgs.
And you got we got people like Roshan fighting over there, right? So what he claims is, even when they're training in the gym, sometimes randomly the 1FC guys will come and weigh them out there in the off season, even when they don't have a fight.
Okay.
Just see at what they are.
Okay.
So
really?
Over there. Yeah. That's what at least Roshan claimed.
And this is more about safety. This is more about safety.
This is for fighters' safety. They do this so that fighters don't cut massive amounts of weight in a short period of time, and that doesn't affect their livers, their kidneys, and eventually sends them into cardiac arrest, because it's happened a few times due to weight cutting. There was a BBC documentary where Dean Garnett cut 6 kgs in one night. Yeah.
Oh, that's so gross.
And he looked like a walking corpse at the end of it, but eventually he won his fight. He did what he had to do. He got in there, made weight. I mean, he got in there, fought like a champion. He had made weight before that. I don't understand how people cut 6 kgs the day before the fight, man. That's just insane.
It's so insane. And if I would want to ask both of you guys, for our listeners and for our audience, what is the difference between the UFC weight cutting and the weight cutting that goes on in 1FC? How does 1FC stand out in its weight cutting format or procedure?
Well, see, I've never fought for 1FC, I only heard second-hand, accounts. But if they are doing hydration tests, right, it means people are not dehydrating, people are not cutting weight by losing water. And losing water is the easiest way for fighters to lose weight. I know fighters who lost about close to 10% of their body weight just by losing water, by running, by sauna, by a lot of other activities that they do before the fight. So I know fighters who walk around weighing 94 and come in and weigh it at 84 and then fight at 84.
Okay.
That will definitely not happen in 1FC if they're following all the protocols that they claim to be following. There's a massive difference in the kind of fighters you will face.
Right.
You're not cutting.
And so what's the difference in the fighting experience when you don't cut that amount of weight? Right, Karan? What's the difference do you feel in your fighting experience?
Well, personally for me, when I went up from 61 kgs to 65, I felt very, I just started winning after that. I was losing. I had an 0-2 record. Then as soon as I moved up to 65 kgs, I just started winning. And it's just, you're more full of life. You can fight, you can think. You're not as tired all the time, because when you're focusing on the weight cut so much, it gets a little, I can't say it gets a little taxing. It takes a toll on your mind and your body,
Right.
So as and I started fighting around the time my body was growing a lot. So I started competing properly around the age of 17. No, sorry, properly around the age of 19. I had started competing by 17, but I kept losing. So I kept taking many months off between training. The entire year of 2018, after my nationals, I won my first fight, lost my second fight of the tournament. I took that entire year off. I just trained, got my, got the proper training. I got proper training again because my body was growing at the time. I put on a lot more weight. So instead of walking around at 66, 67 kgs, I started walking around at 68 and 69 kgs. So it became harder and harder for me to make 61 kgs. So I just said that, okay, fine, fuck it. I'm moving up a weight class. And I saw instant results doing that because one, I was more full of life even during the weigh-ins. Secondly, I was more powerful. I actually found that I had knockout power in my right and my left hands. I felt that I was able to keep a pace on people that they didn't that they weren't used to, and it's just my body type was correct for the featherweight division. Like I'm 5'10" and a half,
Right.
and I off season now because I'm 22. My body's pretty much grown into itself. I'm still growing though. I walk around at around 71 and a half, 72 kgs, and that's off season. So I only have to cut about 7 kgs, and I'm not depleting myself as much as I would if I had to make 61 kgs.
Right.
So if I had to make 61 kgs now, I'd probably be dying to make it. I probably wouldn't be able to walk. So yeah, I mean, cutting a lot of weight and not cutting a lot of weight has a massive difference on your performance, but it also has a lot of it's directly proportional to your performance in the ring. But it can also be counterproductive if you don't cut any weight to fight. You don't cut any weight to fight, or you walk around, or you're too small for your weight class. You can either get pulverized by people at that higher weight class, or you can, because you're just that much weaker than them and you're that much smaller than they are.
Right.
Because by the time they're replenished, they've put those 5-6 kgs or maybe 10 kgs back on, and suddenly they look like these monsters, and you look like this little tingu fighting them.
And that's particularly difficult when you're in the middle of a weight class, man. For example, I walk around at 88, and light heavyweight is what 84 to 92. And if I don't cut weight, and come down to 84, there'll be people cutting in from 98 to 94, and I'll be facing them, which is a scary proposition. So you don't want to be there.
And that gives you the advantage of size. That is why they cut so much of weight.
Massive advantage of size, man. And even when you're grappling, right, especially for a fighter like me, I like to grapple a lot, and I'm going to tire myself out trying to out grapple them.
Right.
That's not going to help over 3 rounds. You do not want to
at the lighter weight classes. At the lighter weight classes, it doesn't affect people. The size difference isn't as significant as it is at higher weight classes. So I think once you cross that welterweight barrier, it starts to get harder and harder and harder for people to deal with other people's strengths.
Right.
So you see a guy like Kamaru Usman, who's the welterweight champion of the world. Kamaru is so strong compared to everybody in his weight class. He normally walks around at 205 pounds, and he cuts to 170 pounds to fight.
That's insane.
And his frame is also so huge. He's so huge compared
to he's just so big and wide, and he's got these big ass legs, he's got these big ass shoulders, he's got this big chest, he's got these gorilla like Nigerian genetics, which
and you could say the same about Khabib as well. Khabib's hips and his lower body is he has a lower body of a heavyweight, because if you see below his stomach, below his abdomen, his build is completely different.
I wouldn't say it's like a heavyweight. Heavyweights have some freakishly big legs, but I'd say that he has the legs. He has the legs of either he has the strength in his legs of either a welterweight or a middleweight. He's way above his weight class in terms of his raw strength, and it's just I don't think he uses as much strength as he uses his brains that much in fights.
Right.
Because he's just so competent when it comes to that aspect of the sport. Where you see that there's a massive difference between his striking and his grappling, because his grappling is just so many levels above everybody. But his striking is, I don't mean to disrespect Khabib when I say this, he's one of my favorite fighters, but it's sort of subpar, But that's not his focus, so you can't blame him for that.
Right. And when I went down to New Zealand for the Oceania Open, right, there were a lot of Samoans who came in from New Zealand, as well as there was this new Polynesia. And these guys are stockily built, and they have a lot of muscle and in weird places. So the guy I lost to, I'm kicking his legs, while I'm on the ground, and he's not budging, not an inch. And I later see an Instagram video of his deadlifting 400 pounds. I'm like, crap. That is insane power. No wonder he wasn't budging. His leg strength is like insane.
How old was he?
He was young, man. He was 22, 23 something. Yeah. And this was his first IMF tournament, and he won gold. He just destroyed everybody.
Okay.
He was a purple belt, right?
Purple belt in Jiu-Jitsu, yeah. But his striking was not bad either. He was able to hold his own, even when people were striking.
That's the thing about genetics of people that are outside India. They're just so freakishly built. Like I remember I saw this one 19-year-old junior competitor from Australia. This guy had a bicep that was bigger than my head, man. I mean, he's 19 years old. His biceps are bigger than my head. I mean, I have a small head, that's different, but you can't have a bicep that big. It's just unfair.
Right.
It's just unfair. You look at these guys' bone structures. It's just different. It's just different. So you can't. So even the featherweights that take part, they just have these big, thick bones. So they're skinny. That's why they make 65 kgs, but they have these big, thick bones. So when they grab a hold of you, it's just different. Especially the Russians. Now, I faced the number one guy in the world, 𝘭𝘰𝘯𝘦𝘳 in my very first IMAF fight. When this guy grabbed me, it didn't feel as strong as but when I got wrist control, like I grabbed his wrist at one point, I was like, motherfucker, what the fuck? Why is his wrist so bloody thick? And I wasn't holding the glove. I was holding his wrist. I was holding the part like right above the wrist over here. The glove, the glove ends about over here. I was holding his forearm over here, like his his middle forearm.
Yeah.
And I just thought, motherfucker, why is his wrist so thick? It's just during the fight, I'm thinking like, this is so not fair. Meanwhile, he's punching me, and I see punches coming at me. I see punches flying at me on the ground. I'm just like, uncle, mat maro mere ko, please. I literally had that attitude. I literally had that mindset as he's punching me. But it's just the people abroad are built so differently, and you see them, and it's nice to see that they use it's nice to see that they use their genetics in the right way.
Yeah.
So when they go out to these tournaments and they make an even lower weight class, they fuck people up in that weight class. You see that world class quality. You see that world class pedigree.
Yeah. I wanted to just as you talked about genetics, suppose and I'm going to ask both of you, because you both have been fighting for a fair amount of time. Vaibhav, you've been fighting for a long time, and the point is, when you are genetically inferior,
he just called you old.
No, he's proud of being called old now. He doesn't have any problems now. So when you are genetically inferior, when you're going to world championships and all these international tournaments, and you know that they're going to be genetically superior to you, they're going to have heavy bone weight and heavy muscle mass, how do you counter that? I think because we Indians do not have the genetics that the Russians have, or these well-built guys have. So how do we make up for that? How do we Indians in general, or fighters when they are fighting, when they understand, when they know that people there are going to be genetically superior, what preparations and how can they counter that or compensate for that?
Well, I'd like to go first on this one, Vaibhav, if you don't mind. I know you are our guest and I'm speaking more than you are. But I think there's two trains of thought to this. I'll tell you why. First and the most important thing is the confidence that Indians go with. We're not very confident when we go into the tournaments, just because usually when somebody goes there, it's their first time at such a high level. I mean, of course, there are exceptions like Vaibhav's and my friend Mehboob from Hyderabad, who's India's first world champion.
Yeah.
So you have a guy like Mehboob who has this understanding of the sport, but which is why he walks in there with that swagger and that confidence. But you don't see that in a lot of Indian fighters, because it's either their first time at these tournaments, or it's just that they don't have the facilities and the way that they don't have the resources that these guys abroad do to train. So there's absolutely no government support, and usually before we go, we have to put our hands in our own pockets and pull a lot of money out and train. There's more struggles that come with that, whether you're actually going or you're not going for that tournament. Whether you so I'm not saying these are excuses for anybody else to win. It's just a confidence issue for a lot of Indians when we go there. Like, I remember the first time I was there, I was so starstruck by everybody that was there, because guys that I'd only seen on the internet and I'd only seen conquering the world were standing in the elevator with me. I'm like, oh shit, that's him. Giants. Oh shit, that's him. Oh shit, that's him. Oh my god, that's him. I'm just and then when it comes time for me to fight, I fight a stone cold Russian who doesn't give a fuck about who's there to do a job. So I knew that my mentality was wrong when I walked in there, and usually Indians go into that sort of mentality to fight. Our skill level sometimes might be a lot better than most people over there, and I dare say that because I've seen some of the people training, I've seen some of the people actually fighting as well. It's just a confidence issue that we walk in with. Now, that's my personal take on it. I don't know how much Vaibhav agrees with me. Vaibhav, what do you think?
Yeah, so very honestly, I don't think we are genetically inferior, very honestly, because, we've got people winning the world championships in wrestling.
Right.
We have amateurs in boxing who go and conquer the world.
Right.
So it's not that genetically we are weak. But if you look at wrestling and boxing in India, right, it's gone through this phase where it's matured. And they have their training regime set, they have their nutrition set, but more importantly, they have their strategy set.
Right.
But boxing and wrestling is only one-dimensional, right? MMA is multi-dimensional.
Yeah.
And when these guys, especially the Russians, Kazakhs come in, right, their game is wrestling-based, and their meta game of the entire team is similar. Even though
Okay.
the way they execute it may be a little different, it's similar, and they're training with that mentality.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
when our team goes, everybody's different.
Hmm.
To the point that there's very little interoperability between us, and even the coaches who come in, they don't really know what the fighter's strength is, and even if they give advice or even if they're cornering, they really do not know what advice to give
Yeah.
in the middle of a fight. For example, I was on the ground, and later when I watched the video, the coaches who were with me, the corners with me, they were good, but I realized they did not know my ground game. There were options I could have had over there, and had somebody known my game or had known my meta game better, they could have advised me a lot better during that particular fight. We do not have that fundamental thing in place right now. It's not a fault of the sport. The sport is very new in India,
Right.
and I think it takes some time to reach there. But apart from that, the confidence also is there, and a lot of things go into that. So someone like Mehboob, he went with his own coach, a coach who taught him everything he knows, and he was the world champion before this. So I was cornering Mehboob with his coach, and the way his coach was telling him simple things, like "Utha usko." It doesn't mean anything, but then that guy knew exactly what his coach wanted him to do,
Right.
and he executed that, and it works.
Right.
And for the Kazakh team, when they come, they come with a medic, they come with a physio, they come with a camera crew, they come with individual coaches for individual fighters.
Okay.
In a lot of cases.
Okay.
And this is not just the World Championship; they did the same for the Asian Open as well. So I think
European Championships, Oceania last year.
Yeah, they
A
didn't
lot
come
of
back.
Kazakhs went there as well. Last year. I'm talking about last year.
Oh, last year. Okay, yeah. So they go with the entire crew, and the fighters have that backing in, and which is why you saw this Kazakh team just sweep the medal tally in most of these events. So because they have the backing, and the coaches, the medics, they all know what the fighters need, and they make sure the fighters have that. So the fighters have nothing else to do but just focus on their game, go and execute the game plan, come out. So yeah,
it's like a fraternity. It's like a fraternity and a sorority of people, a sorority for the female fighters and a fraternity for the male fighters, with their whole crew, because they spend 3, 4, maybe 5 months in their training camps, because our training camp was about 7 days. I mean, hats off to MMA India for pulling that off for us. It took a lot for them to get everybody together, to get all the coaches, to get all the resources for us. Hats off to them for doing that for us. But these people had the Kazakhs and the Russians and the Swedish people, who else? I think that's about it. But all these countries, now Uzbekistan as well, and Tajikistan. All these countries had these systems in place where they say, okay, you have your nationals, you have your regional your regional nationals in the months of March, April, or May. Right. After May, you start after May, you get the best of the best. That's the gold and silver medalists, traveling out to traveling out to one part of the country to train for 4 or 5 months in preparation for that world championship. Where in those 4 or 5 months, you're making friends, you're familiarizing yourself with your teammates. And your teammates are world class as well. You're training with world class coaches. You're getting world class facility to train in. You're getting you're again like Vaibhav said. You have medics. You have nutritionists. You have individual coaches for individual fighters. I can't stress how important that individual coach for the individual fighter is, because you need to familiarize yourself with that coach so much to a point where that coach says, like Vaibhav told us just now, Mehboob's coach was telling him very simple things, but Mehboob knew exactly what the fuck his coach meant. So it's that comfort that fighters have, which is why they're able to walk into that cage with that swagger that they do, with that comfort that they do, with the confidence that they do. Because they know that, okay, fine, if something goes wrong, my coach is right there, the medic is right there, the camera crew is right there. If something goes wrong, I know that I'm not taken care of.
Right. So it's that mental and technical expertise and backing that they have, the mental and technical.
Exactly. And just the amount of resources and funding they get in these countries, all these countries, MMA is government funded. And the government, when they want champions, they produce champions. Like you see in wrestling, we have champion right now. You have this absolute monster in 𝘠𝘠𝘧 in MMA.
Yes.
We spoke about her on our previous podcast as well.
Yes.
Where she has just been demolishing all the girls in her weight class.
Yes.
because she's got the right type of training. She's been familiarized with the coaches at Evolve MMA. She's familiarized herself with that environment, so she knows that, okay, fine, when I travel with these people, the advice they give me, I know I can trust that advice. When she goes to her apartment in Singapore, she knows that, okay, fine, she has to sleep and she has to wake up and go to train again. That sort of certainty and that sort of routine is not there in a country like ours, where the government doesn't support, where the government doesn't support sports they don't know anything about.
Right.
And you can't blame them, because the sport has not gotten the recognition it needs. Everything is privately funded. Everything is very, I can't say at a low level, because that's not fair of me to say, but it's not at the level that it is in these countries where it is government supported.
So Vaibhav, what do you think? How much time? What's the way forward for MMA in India now?
No, I think they've already gone down the right route, in terms of the way they are structuring the tournaments, and now they're getting a coaching program in.
Okay.
And one of the biggest issues I saw in Indian MMA scene is, and Karan would know this. You take a person to the ground, 80% of the people will not know what to do from there.
Exactly.
And the moment you go out, they're done. And the so-called strikers are essentially brawlers. They will just come in swinging, and if they connect, they win. If they don't, it's just a brawling match, and they slug it out until one person somehow comes up on top.
Throwing bricks at each other, basically.
Yeah, there are very few people who technically think this, who have a technical, plan or follow a particular path. That this is my meta game. I work this. If plan A doesn't work, plan B. If plan B doesn't work, plan C. And that's because coaches themselves were very new to this. Now, we are having this program coming in where, we have this coaching certification, where coaches are expected to know certain moves, names of the moves, how they, and they have been, basically educated, not certified on these things.
Right.
At least the base level knowledge will come in.
Right.
It's not just a karate guy or a kickboxing guy or a boxing guy coming and think that I can teach MMA now. Now there's a guy who at least fundamentally has been certified. He at least understands MMA. Whether he transfer the knowledge or not is separate. But that's a good start. It's a good foundation.
Right.
And it can only go up from here is what I think. But the second thing is, we need a lot of fights, lot more fights coming in. And there also, you got underground fight nights, you got fight of nights, apart from the opens which are coming in.
Right.
So the more events that come out, the better fighters will start creating. Because fighters need to fight, and need to fight good opponents to actually get to that stage and understand what their game is, and then go to the international level.
So basically, you need to breed a culture of MMA. The more you breed it, the more you expose people to it, right? And the more you expose MMA to people, that's how you breed fighters and champions, I guess. Okay, that's a good way.
Absolutely.
What is the difference between fighters in smaller organizations that get stuck at these small organizations and the fighters that fight at the UFC? Vaibhav, can you tell me one?
No, what?
One difference between these. Tell me one difference between fighters that get stuck at smaller organizations fighting their entire lives till about 40, 42 years old, as compared to fighters that get into the UFC at 19, 20 years old.
Very honestly, if you talk about the pro fighters, right, I would say they in India, we don't have a culture of managers yet.
Right.
And genuinely, in my opinion, for good pro fighters to go ahead, they need good managers or agents to manage them and to tell them this is the way forward. This is how you manage your fights, manage your opponents, and go ahead. So in India, we have this mentality that it doesn't matter who it is, let everybody come. I will fight each and everybody, which is a good mentality to have. But you also need to protect yourself at some point of time when you turn pro, because at a pro level, you lose a match. And it may not be because you were a bad fighter. It may just be you are fighting in a promotion which supports the other fighter.
Right.
Right? Understand where you need to fight. Understand who you need to fight.
Understand
whether you're being made a can for a person who is just building his name.
Yeah.
Right. And in the US, especially people who make it to the UFC, most of the young people are the ones who've been built to that level, and UFC knows that their agents and managers can help them sell tickets.
Okay.
Beyond that, yes, you have to perform. Once you get to that stage, you definitely have to perform and take your career ahead. So, and I'm not just talking about UFC, even Cage Warriors, I would consider Cage Warrior as a premier.
Cage Warriors, Bellator, One Championship. You have so many good organizations breaking through right now, and there's such quality talent that's breaking through and coming through. And Brave, how can I forget Brave, dude? Brave has some. Khamzat Chimaev came from Brave, and he's tearing it up in the UFC at the moment.
Yeah.
Yes. So at amateur level, yes, fight everybody at amateur level that you can. Learn yourself, understand your game at the amateur level. But once you turn pro, get a good manager and make sure you manage your career in a way that it's on an upward trajectory. But yeah, the
How does
moment
a
you go,
fighter how does a fighter understand a good manager from a bad manager? How do you define how does a fighter in India now, if you were to go to a fighter and say, okay, fine, you need to find yourself a good manager, how are you supposed to categorize a good manager from a bad manager to a fighter in India who doesn't know anything about what a manager even does? Explain to us what a
so
manager does. First of all,
very honestly,
explain what a manager does for a fighter.
right. So see, boxing has that culture right now, and Kamal Mujtaba is someone I would say is a very good boxing manager. And if you look at the fights he gets for his fighters, he will make sure he gets fights that it's not that his fighters walk over. He gets people who are at equal skill level, but he'll also make sure his fighters train well enough that they will get past them. And he makes sure that he gets them such fighters who will increase their rating on BoxRec, which means their ranking goes up.
Right.
The moment their ranking goes up, they qualify for boxing titles.
Okay.
And that's how they go ahead in life, boxing. In MMA, Tapology also works on the same ranking system.
Oh,
right.
okay.
When you talk to a manager, he should understand how does these rating systems work. He should understand which promotion to pitch you to. He should have connections to those promotions. And he should understand, he should already have a list of things for you to do to reach a particular destination. For example, even now, after, working with Kamal, if a boxer fresh off the blocks comes to me and he has talent, I know this is ABC that you need to do to get an Asia Pacific title shot with the World Boxing Foundation or World Boxing Council.
Right.
Somebody who can tell you the same in MMA and has proved it. For example, Vishal Segal, Roshan is now in 1FC. Kantaraj is also now in 1FC.
Right.
So they've shown that they know how to take people there. So these are the kind of people, and slowly they'll, hopefully more will come in and more will develop. And these are the kind of people you need to associate yourself with. Or within India itself, maybe underground fighting itself is something which is coming up fairly quickly. Anybody who can tell you how to get there, start fighting there and take up fights there is a good manager right now.
What I understand by what you're saying, Vaibhav, is one of the things that I was just pondering on. It's not necessary for you to be an MMA fighter to get into MMA. When you're talking about managers, you need to understand the game of MMA. And if there's somebody who wants to get into MMA, right, like getting into the management and stuff, there's a lot, because I think that's how we move forward as a whole fraternity or as a whole nationally, right? So more and more people need to come into MMA as well. People who are good in business or in management or stuff like that, who understand what's going on in the MMA scene. What do you think about this?
See, I still think that if you are a fighter yourself, you would understand the game better and you would be able to advise the fighter better. But again, it's not the only reason. For example, Don King, the most legendary boxing promoter of all time,
never stepped foot into the ring in his life.
Never. So not necessary. And we definitely need these kind of people to come into the ecosystem. The only danger with that is if they come only with the motive of money, then the athlete, the athletes may not benefit. But it should be a case where there's a mix of both non-MMA professionals coming in as well as MMA athletes who no longer want to fight anymore, get into the game and push it, and that mix should help this whole thing grow in India, in my opinion.
And this is one thing I wanted to ask you again, is now as you started this podcast as well, so that more and more people come to know about MMA. Now this question comes from, for example, it's coming from somebody who wants to join MMA or who's already into MMA. He's a beginner, but he wants to start fighting, he wants to compete, right? What's the best way of doing that? For example, now you said don't be a can for somebody, don't let people walk over you. What are some basic things that fighters who are beginning or fighters who are already fighting, what are some basic things that they need to understand to advance their own career?
So the first and foremost thing I advise people is don't even think of going pro until you have at least 10 to 20 fights in the amateur level. And in the heavyweight category,
very harsh. That sounds very harsh.
In the heavyweight category, you may not have as many, but trust me, you will not know. You will really not know what your fighting style is.
Right.
Because unless you have that many fights in an amateur level, and I know the heavier category fighters in India will not get that. So maybe, not as many for them, but at least participate in as many fights and tournaments as you can. If you continuously keep weighing in at the amateur level, nobody's beating you at the amateur level, then yes, maybe it's time to jump pro. But I have not seen anybody who's been at that position, for a while now. Even
Mohammad
Dinesh.
Musa Altaf, Mohammad Musa Altaf from IJJ.
He has
He's
lost,
somebody
right?
he's lost twice, once to a Bahraini guy via armbar. I'm not saying he's not lost ever, but he's just been so dominant across the bantamweight circuit in India.
Yeah.
He's never fought abroad, of course, but he's been so dominant in India that it begs the question of him having to go pro. But I asked him this a couple of years ago, like when I was just up and coming. I always loved to pick older, more experienced fighters' brains. This was about 2.5, maybe 3 years ago, when I asked him that why haven't you gone pro yet? So he says, I want to fight abroad at least once. I'm not gonna fight pro until I know that I can take on people from around the world. And that exposure to be able to fight around the world is so important, because there are guys from Bahrain that have maybe 10 fights in total, but all their fights have come under the IMAF banner. So they have maybe 5 wins and 5 losses, but all those 5 losses have come in IMAF competitions.
Right. But a lot of these guys have had fight experience before in something else coming in.
I'm talking about young guys. I'm talking about young guys as well. I'm not just talking about guys that are 27, 28 years old. I'm talking about some of the juniors that I knew. What is the guy's name? I forget his name. It'll come to me later. No. The guy who fought Ryo Yamaguchi. I called him out on Twitter.
What is it?
𝘭𝘰𝘯𝘀, that was his. That's his Instagram handle. Ali Yaqub. Now, Ali Yaqub, he's not got the most impressive looking record, but he's got all his fights under the IMAF and now Brave banner. So his fights are not that many and his record is not that impressive, but all those fights hold so much weight because he's either beaten or lost to world class fighters.
Right. So yeah, so he has the advantage of fighting for the Kingdom of Bahrain and having the training facility out there. Yeah. So if you have that, then I'm not the one to advise you if you have all that. Very honestly, if you have all that, all power to you. Go pro immediately. Yeah, if you can. But in India, if you don't have that, fight as many amateur fights. Like in Karnataka, right? What we are doing is you're also doing club wars. So it's not just people who are the best in India. Like in the Bangalore Open or Body Power Open, you may just be facing up against the the best in India. But in club wars, you typically get the matchmaking is such that you typically face a guy who's fairly new himself. Start off with that, jump onto one of these opens, Bangalore Open, Body Power Open, etc., and then work yourself up from there. If you can beat everybody in your weight category and win 2 or 3 opens on the go, go pro.
Right.
Yeah.
We were talking about some guy who also fought in Bahrain and all. I don't remember exactly.
Ali Yaqub.
Okay, who's this guy?
Okay, so
exactly
we went on from there. Okay, so he is somebody that fought an Indian guy recently. His name is Ariz Ahmed, and he beat him pretty dominantly at Brave Combat Federation. I don't know what event it was. I think Brave 43 or Brave 44. No, 43.
Okay.
And it was an amateur bout. So what Brave does is on the undercard or in the preliminary bouts, they keep some amateur fighters. And this was the first fight of the night. So the first maybe 2-3 fights of the night, they'll keep those as amateur bouts. Now, this is full on amateur rules. 7-ounce gloves, shin pads, no elbows of any kind, knees only to the stomach, and no heel hooks and no neck cranks and no spine manipulations during competition. So there's a massive difference between the strategy that you have when you're fighting as a professional and you're fighting as an amateur.
Okay.
So they usually keep these amateur bouts at the beginning of their fight cards, and as the fight card progresses, then the pro bouts start, and then the more valuable or the more the fights that have most eyes on them are usually higher up in that progression or higher up in that hierarchy of the fight card going and usually coming to its end.
Yeah. That's great. So continuing, Vaibhav, again, you were answering that question. What do fighters need to keep in mind when they are competing, when they want to compete? So the first thing I think you said was, are you frozen or you can listen?
No, I can hear you.
Okay, that's good. Okay. Okay, that's good.
So yeah, I was just thinking, get as many fights as possible, at the local
Yeah, you were
scale.
saying,
And,
yeah, don't think about getting pro even before you finish 15 fights at least.
yeah, don't. And see, very honestly, if you go pro in any of the Indian pro organizations, so-called Indian pro organizations, right, you still get a win. You end up looking good.
Right.
But the moment, assuming a break comes back to India, and they put you up there, and you're gonna end up looking like a fool.
Okay.
And they're gonna use you as a feeder to one of the fighters they're building up for a title or something.
Right.
I got a call from
right.
an Indian. I got a call from an Indian pro promotion. I think everybody knows what the promotion is called. I'm not going to name any names, but I got a call from them through a coach that I know in Gurgaon, and they asked me to be one of the fighters to fill in for one of the pro fighters that fell out. Now I knew. Luckily, I surrounded myself with good people to know well enough that okay, fine, I'm not going to be this bakra that's fed to this absolute killer of a featherweight that off season weighs about 20 kgs heavier than I do, and on fight night is going to weigh about 10-15 kgs heavier than I am right now. I'm not going to be some bakra. I'm going to get that experience, and then I'm going to fight. And I'm so glad that I didn't take that pro fight back then. Now I know that okay, fine, I'm big enough. My level of experience has grown to a point where okay, now I'm considering going pro within a year or within a year and a half.
Right.
Once I get that experience back in.
Right.
And the second thing, a lot of these pro organizations, right? They want people who can sell. So I interact with Ryan Spillane and his coach from SBG Cockpit because they cornered me during my Oceania Open thing. But I was the only Indian who went there. There was no coach.
Okay.
So the SBG Cockpit coach was good enough to corner me, and we trained with Ryan Spillane. So Ryan has just now signed up with Bellator. And one of the things Bellator says, tells the new signees is make sure that you can sell XYZ number of tickets.
Right.
And that's what they're looking at.
Right.
So when you are thinking of going pro, right, you may not necessarily want to look at just an amateur MMA record. If you have something like what a 𝘠𝘠𝘬𝘠𝘚 does, a 2 world championship record, that's insane.
Yeah.
If you do not have that, build something else in some other sport, maybe a combat sport. If you walk and say that, I do amateur MMA, but before this I was also an amateur boxer who won bronze in the Asian Open or whatever.
Right.
Things like this help sell you. And it will help the organization sell you, and that makes you a lot more valuable to them. So yeah, build as much value as you can to yourself, and make sure that don't go and be a bakra for just for the sake of getting a pro fight record out there.
Yeah, it's much better to have a loss on an amateur record than to have on a pro record, because once you have a loss on a pro record, and God forbid it's your first pro fight and you get a loss, it's very hard to get fights and promotions afterwards. No promoter wants you, and even if they want you, you're just a tune-up fight, or you end up making the other guy look good. And even if you win, it's not really a win. It's just sort of okay, fine, you're balancing out that loss. So it's your 0-0 again in a sense.
Yeah. You're resetting. You're back to square one, square zero. Yeah.
Unless you're a guy like Aaron Pico who fights at Bellator, who had such hype coming in, who had such hype around him going into the fight. He lost his first fight. Unfortunately for him, they threw him to the wolves when he went in there. He went up against a guy who was 7-0 in his very first fight. You can't fight somebody with 7 fights in your very first fight. I think he was 6-1, or I think he was 7-0. I don't know, but I know that he fought somebody very experienced, and Aaron was maybe 22 at the time, and he's an absolute killer. He's somebody that he's a scary featherweight. Like, he's a scary, big, explosive wrestler, boxer who's got insane knockout power. Unless you're a guy like him who can sell, who's got that skill level, but who keeps taking these small losses here and there. But his credibility is still high because he's marketable. That brings me to another point about asking Vaibhav. Vaibhav, what do you think? What advice would you give somebody in India or an Indian MMA fighter, an amateur fighter coming up to build his marketability? What are some factors that help you become a marketable fighter in India? Besides being a good fighter, what other aspects make you marketable?
I'll tell you, there's a guy called Mathi who fought in my promotion for boxing. He's got a 1 pro fight record. He's got 70,000 followers on Instagram.
Whoa, okay.
And his following is set to such a point, I had closed this event. I was not selling tickets, right?
Okay.
And I had padlocked the gate the moment the event started. There was a mob waiting outside. And this is a mob which does not live in Bangalore. They have driven down from Chennai to come watch him fight.
Oh.
Are you serious?
Oh, what's his name again?
Mathi. He goes by the Instagram handle Coach Mathi.
coach.
Coach
I think I
Bachchan.
saw him.
Yeah, he's the guy with the white short, very flashy, very fast hands.
Oh, that guy. Yeah,
That
man,
guy.
he was very good. Like I saw all the boxing events.
Okay.
I saw all the. Jamie, can you pull that up for me, please?
Yes, I pulled that up for you, man. So let me
This
just.
guy, before this, he had one pro fight,
Yeah,
but his Instagram
yeah.
is very well handled. He puts a lot of videos out, and he basically caters to the Tamil Nadu crowd.
Oh, this guy. Okay.
This guy.
Yeah, no, I saw him. Yeah.
Okay, now it's 84. It was 70K last week, man. It's 84K now.
You just market yourself the right way, man. I mean,
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And see how well
read
he
the room.
markets himself. See how
So
well.
I, as a promoter, if I'm a promoter, I want him. I want him on my card because people like imagine a mob driving down from Chennai to attend a close boxing event.
Yeah.
Dude, people don't do that for Khabib.
Yeah,
He fights in
exactly.
Arabia. People don't do that for Khabib. This guy's gonna be a fucking champion one day, man. I mean, just look at the intensity also on his face. He's just it's awesome to see guys like that.
And he's
And
out there
what
to
weight did he
market
fight at?
himself. He knows exactly what he's
What
supposed to do.
Web of what weight did he fight at?
I'm sorry,
He
I
looks
don't
pretty
remember.
light. Like he looks like a
He's light,
flyweight
very
or a,
light. Yeah, he's very light. I forgot what.
yeah, below 60 kgs, right? Like he
Yeah,
looks
yeah,
below 60 kgs. Yeah.
below 60.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But some of these guys coming out of Tamil Nadu are just insane, man. Like the insane boxers, the insane MMA fighters.
Mhm. So,
What
yeah, so,
region of India do you think breeds the best MMA fighters?
Good question.
from what I've seen,
It's
right?
debatable. It's debatable, I know, but yeah.
It's very debatable,
But
but
what do you think?
I've seen the northeast India, right, especially Manipur,
Mhm.
because you know we have a big bunch of friends from there who I train with,
Right.
and they are insane. Their intensity, and they have a mix of good striking and good grappling. I really do not know how
Right.
grappling has come up so much in the northeast, but they have insane grappling as well. It is just that they've
Right.
not been structured in a very formal way, but
Right.
they are very, very good in terms of overall skill level.
Right.
So I would say that is there. But beyond that, very honestly, it's a mix everywhere. You got good fighters in Bombay, Pune, Bangalore, Chennai. It's a mix outside of that. But Northeast is something which really caught my eye because the sheer intensity and the sheer the range of skills they bring in is very, very good.
Mm-hmm. Okay. In terms of sheer skill level, in terms of marketability, and in terms of a future that you see for these fighters that I'm about to ask you about, who do you think are some of the best fighters in India, who are the brightest prospects to be able to go and make it to a high level? Who just give me 5 fighters that you think are really, really going to make it with good marketability, good skills, and just who do you think will make it in the next 5 years?
You're talking about the pro fighters or people who are still at amateur level?
Pro, amateur, everybody.
Right. So see, Ritu and Roshan, they are out there to win. And
Top of
both
that
of them,
list,
I see
yeah.
them winning world championships out there. There is no doubt about it.
I'm talking about prospects. I'm talking about prospects. They're not prospects. They're full on championship caliber fighters.
Right. So apart from them, right, what I would say is, see, Surbala is someone I genuinely see going right up there.
Right.
And she didn't get a chance to show her complete skills in the world championship because she tore her ligament.
Yeah, she broke her knee. Yeah.
But she's insane, and she's already been a world champion. She's a junior K1 world kickboxing champion, and she has a belt at home. And she now does jiu-jitsu also. So her game is insane at atomweight level.
Okay.
So she's someone I can see going all the way up there and out there.
Okay.
You're pretty good, very honestly, because you are
really
primarily
think so? Okay.
You are primarily a striker, and I saw your game in Hyderabad, and your Hyderabad tournament was entirely ground game based. So I have high hopes for you, very genuinely, very honestly.
Yeah, thank you, man. That means a lot.
There's Balakrishna Patange, and Bala, when he cuts down to welter, he is an insane. He's a scary welterweight. Very honestly, because he's a lot taller than
tall.
me.
He's strong. He's tall. Yeah. He's strong, and he's very He came home to train the other day. He was in Pune for a day, and we were training together. I normally handle people that weight pretty easily, like just because of my competency in jiu-jitsu, because of the guys that I worked with.
Yeah.
But it's just different. He's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, and he's so strong. Like he supplements that technique with his strength and then his brains when he fights.
Yeah, and he's got a knockout power in his kicks. His kicks look slow. You
Genuine
think
knockout power, yeah.
a mile away, but they connect and it's lights out. I saw a guy just fall flat, and it took a few minutes for the ref to just wake him up, and that guy was lights out. So Bala is extremely good. And in India, I don't think Bala has ever lost any amateur competition in India, right?
He lost once in Delhi in 2018 when he had to cut down to 84 kgs for the first time. He said he felt very weak at the time, but that was the only loss he has in India.
Yeah, otherwise he's been destroying the competition in India. So
exactly. All his losses are at an IMAF level. Yeah. All his other losses are at an IMAF level. So yeah.
So he's way up there. These are three in my mind right now. The other.
Keep in mind, you can talk about pro fighters as well. Any pro fighters that you see in the upcoming MFN in the upcoming MFN fight card, or any pro fighters that are fighting in any other promotions besides guys like Kantaraj, who besides people who've established themselves.
Right. Very honestly, no. Yeah, it's a little sad to say, but no, I don't see too many people. Even Bharat Khandari, he's a very, very good fighter. But even the UFC, right, the way they position him, I don't see him really making. Sadly, no, I can't name too many more.
Okay. That's unfortunate.
That's cool, right? Yeah.
Okay. But I appreciate you using my name, and thank you so much. And I think Bala will appreciate that. And are Dinesh and Surbala still in Bangalore with you?
No, Dinesh had gone back to Manipur a while back. Surbala, he just went. The only reason I didn't include Dinesh's name is because he's still very one-dimensional. He needs to work a lot on striking to even get up there. But he's a scary wrestler. Yeah.
He's a very scary wrestler. I remember the first time I wrapped my legs around him for a triangle around his neck and around his right arm. Just effortlessly picked me up, and I thought he was going to slam me. So I just let go, and I just let go, went to the floor and threw a knee, and the round ended, thankfully.
Right.
Yeah, man, it was insane. What do you tell me about your preparation for this WKN fight? Because I'm very curious to know about somebody who I mean, in all honesty, I know that you're not a striker. I know that you didn't train your striking all that much, but then to go from being this grappling heavy fighter to training to training yourself to fight like a kickboxer for such a high level, for such a high profile, high level fight. What did you do to prepare for it for so long, and how long did you prepare for it for?
So between you and me, right? I know my kicks are horrible. My kicks are shitty.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So the whole objective in this entire training program was just train low kicks and try to go boxing. That was number one. So the whole idea was, I haven't trained striking purely for the last 3 years. And because it was MMA and Jiu-Jitsu was my base, grappling was my base. And the last few months, even conditioning had gone down. So the first thing was to get the conditioning back, make sure the hands keep moving, and make sure the hands can stay up at the end of the 5 rounds. Because again, we fight 3 rounds. We do not fight 5 rounds.
Yeah, we don't fight 5 rounds, yeah.
So conditioning myself to last the 5 rounds was the first major thing. And the second thing, I realized, I have to just, work on strategy as to what do I throw, what do I connect.
Yeah.
So purely based on that, I cannot build so many skills in such a short duration.
Yeah.
So although I had people like Asif coming and sparring with me, and Asif is insane. Asif is like 58 kgs and he hits liver shots and I go down. Yeah. God. So, but the whole idea with Asif was just understand, his only job was to tire me out over 5 rounds.
Right.
And see if I can still continue after that. So that was a big part of my training. Just make sure I'm conditioned enough to last those 5 rounds. Beyond that, it was simple. Just target his legs with low kicks, jab the hell out of him, and then if I can connect combinations. So and it worked except for the combination part, right? I couldn't run a lot of combination because I managed to have a headline fracture in my foot in the first round. My right wasn't really shooting. But yeah, apart from that, the jabs, the low kicks, they were on point. So it went well. It's just that the knockout power, which I wanted with the combinations, wasn't there. But yeah, so very honestly, I was only training for the fighter. purely for the
Okay.
fighter, the way he fights, and all my moments, all my motions, all my combinations was purely made for him. If I have to fight again tomorrow, I'm telling you, I'll throw all of those out of the window and I'll have to start right from scratch.
Right.
Really?
All over again.
Yeah. So,
How was it fighting Ashwin though? Like, tell me a little bit about that fight. Walk us through that fight. Is the fight up? Have you uploaded the fight somewhere?
the fight will be up on Fight.tv. Fight.tv has the entire event up. So
Okay.
we can watch the entire event out there. But
Does it need subscription or subscription? or
Do we have access to? Do we have access to it right now?
Yeah, the first event is free to view, so I'm sure you would have access.
Okay.
Okay, let me just
Walk
check.
me through rounds 1 to 5. Walk me through rounds 1 to 5. What was your mindset going into round 1 as compared to how did you feel in round 5?
So round 1, I had energy. I was cornering him. The whole idea was corner him, take him to the corners, ropes or the ring corners, and just see if I can get a TKO.
Right.
So just pile on, win the round, win the round. But at some point, he checked one of my kicks, and my foot got hurt.
Right.
So second round onwards,
you have to be.
The foot wasn't hurting, but I realized something was off because my combinations were not landing. And Ashwin has this habit of landing groin shots, which also happened in this match. So as
unfortunately,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, what were you saying?
I'm saying there's a lot of fighters in India that have a habit of doing that, but just because they want to break, just because they want to break the mentality of the fighter. Because if they feel that they're losing, they'll do some cheap shit to win the fight. But I'm sure Ashwin didn't do that intentionally.
I don't think his shots are intentional. It's just a style of kicks. He throws a lot of these straight front kicks, and by the end of the second round, my cardio was going low, and those groin kicks didn't really help. So then round 3, 4, 5 onwards, it was more of survival. Just keep landing, jabs and putting my weight on him.
No, kickboxing's riddled with shit like that, because I've had one kickboxing fight in my entire life and I'll never fight kickboxing again because I got kicked to the groin 3 times and I was the one that got disqualified because the referee said I was diving. But again, kickboxing, I'm sorry to say, was a sport in India that it's just run by politics. It's just riddled with politics, which is quite sad.
Right.
Because I fought one of the association's boys. So they just, every time I was catching him with shots, he kept kicking me in my balls. And I kept going down and they eventually just disqualified me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many rounds is this match? Did this match go?
These are 5 rounds of 3 minutes. So it will be way too much for this.
Yikes.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
Yeah.
How did it feel fighting without shin pads for the first time? Like, I knew when I fought in underground fight nights, fighting without shin pads, I felt, because I was facing a wrestler, I knew I wanted to kick him and end it, and that's exactly what happened. But what was your mentality?
I see those grind shots you're talking about, Vaibhav. I see those grind shots.
Man, right off the bat, he didn't waste any time.
2 of them landed very hard. 2 of them landed quite hard, and I had to kind of stop. But he landed quite a few of them through the entire match. But I think this is
ref take away?
3 already.
Did the ref take away a point or no from him?
Huh?
I don't know
what. Did the ref not take a point away from him?
They did not take any point away from him.
Yikes. Okay.
So towards by the end of round 3, round 4, right, my whole thing was just try to put as much weight on him and do dirty boxing than anything else, very honestly.
Right.
But yeah, jabs were the name of the game, jabs and low kicks.
What was one thing of his that you were scared of? Or what was one thing that you were wary of going into this fight? Having fought Ashwin before. Yeah,
so Ashwin, right, he's a guy who really doesn't have technique. He's very odd, but he's a guy who doesn't go down. And if you see most of his fights, right, people go pile on him. They'll thrash him and then they'll gas out.
Okay.
Right.
And then he takes the fight from there. And that was the biggest fear, because when you're piling on someone, he's not defending well, things are connecting.
Yeah.
You want
so
to go
mentally
on.
breaks you.
Yeah, unless you last all 15 minutes, you don't want to save any energy unless you want to go all 15 minutes.
Yeah. So even a glimmer of hope that you can finish quickly, you try to finish it off. But towards the end, you start gassing out, and then that's when he keeps piling on to you. That was the biggest fear. But I knew he couldn't hurt me. He couldn't knock me out. That fear was never there.
Okay.
But
he seems eerily calm. Were you surprised with how calm he was in the fight?
No. So that was expected because I fought him before, and he does this weird. Aikido shit, where he'll kind of wrap his hand around your hands.
Are you serious?
Even here, I don't know if you can notice, but every now and then, right, he'll just wrap his hand around your hand, and my hand is like out there, wrapped up in his.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Oh my God, man. I don't know why, but coincidentally I was watching funny Aikido videos on YouTube today. I can't help but picture that.
At this point, we were so freaking gassed out, man. Both of us.
Yeah.
This was the 4th round, I suppose.
I suppose it was the 4th round or something. Yeah. And my foot was really gone at this point, man. My right foot, right? Yeah, really.
So nice jabs.
Just slogging.
Talk to me about how you felt after the event, after winning, after being, how liberating was it to finally walk away with that belt?
See, I like the fact that I won a kickboxing event and a kickboxing title, but as a fight, right? It was not a fight which I really loved. There are fights you get happy with. You get happy with your performance.
Yeah, true, very true.
The combinations you have landed and all that. So this turned into a slugfest, and the boxing was dirty boxing towards the end of it, and that's not something you want to put across as a fighter when you end up with a fight, especially in a title fight. So the event, people who watched the event loved it. People in the crowd seemed to have loved it, because for them it went 5 rounds and it was close according to them and stuff like that. But as a fighter, you're obviously not happy. You want
very true.
That's the so-called art. Whether you win or lose, right? You need to show your skill,
right?
And that never came out in this fight. So that little bit of a thing is there in my mind. So but but given that I'll come back to striking, hoping it's just going to be uphill from here.
What do you plan on doing in the future, though? Now, if you don't mind me asking, what do you plan on doing in the future in terms of fights? Do you plan on going back to MMA? Do you plan on fighting only kickboxing, or do you want to do just jiu-jitsu?
No. So I am 35 right now, right? Okay. And my body is starting to slow down. And genuinely, I think pro MMA may not be in the cards for me. Pro MMA may be too brutal for my body to recover from post fights. Kickboxing, boxing, maybe Muay Thai is something.
Maybe Muay Thai. Okay.
I'm looking out on, because my instinct, right, in MMA is to throw a few strikes and clinch. It doesn't translate very well in kickboxing, but in Muay Thai, that is the game.
Yeah.
Throw a few strikes, clinch, elbows, knees. So, as a fighter, I just want to explore, can I do stuff over there? Can I fight these formats? And if I can fight, how far can I take it? So for me, it's more of that, how far can I proceed? How far can I go? Can I do certain things over there? I'm pretty sure I cannot, I'm too old right now to learn all the tricks there is. But with whatever I learn, let's see where I can take this, and eventually, after 2 or 3 years, just guide others to go down that same route.
What do you plan on doing with fighting after you're done fighting? Do you plan on managing fighters? Do you plan on being a promoter full time, along with doing your marketing and along with being in the corporate world? What do you plan on doing?
See, I genuinely want to promote stuff in India, because I think I know there are other promotions who do their own thing, but nobody's really directing fighters to go towards global titles or to build their resume that you become a champion in XYZ or WKN or whatever else. So I want to be a promotion who brings those titles in. I'm not very keen on a league. I'm not very keen on a tournament, because leagues, tournaments they essentially mean even good fighters will essentially at some point lose. Right. So I want to build a promotion along those lines, and basically whether it's kickboxing, Muay Thai, boxing, MMA, guide people towards titles which make sense. Global titles, not the ones I created, and hopefully they can use that to build their resume and go to bigger, greener pastures.
That's fantastic, man. It's good that there are people like you who want to give people that platform to sort of projectile themselves into the atmosphere that's viable to make a career out of this. And how viable do you think in the future that will MMA be for? Now, you talk to a 5-year-old boy. A 5-year-old boy will tell you that he either wants to be a firefighter, police officer, or he wants to do something that gives you a steady paycheck. How likely do you think it is that you have guys in America young boys, 13, 14, 15 years old, who say, I want to be an MMA fighter. and who know that they have to go down a certain path, who know the harsh realities of the sport, but also they know about the fruits of their labor.
Right.
How realistic do you think it is for an Indian boy that's maybe 15, 16 years old that's getting into MMA, maybe younger than that, getting into MMA? How realistic is it for them to think that they can actually make a living out of this, being homegrown in India?
See, I think we're still 2 or 3 years away, because if I look at people in the US, right, or even in Ireland or New Zealand,
Right.
if you're an amateur fighter, you may not get paid, but your expenses are taken care of.
Right.
And the moment you start winning, there are brands which come and sponsor you in various ways. So there are these
Okay.
supporting activities which come in, and once that happens, you then build on it and go pro. And these are just reducing expenses. And the moment you go pro, even if you're in the low leagues, right, you get paid like what, $500, $600 a fight is what I've heard is standard.
Right. Okay.
Which is decent, and you can only go up from there. And that is a good amount of money for people in India, to make a living. But in India, we don't have that ecosystem.
Right.
Because outside over there, right, they will have a small gym with those open steel chairs. They will still sell tickets over there, and the promoter will still make money. And that money is what he uses to pay off the fighters.
Okay.
In India, the promoters are not really making money that way, because they haven't planned to make money that way.
Right.
They've either planned to make money through sponsors, or
promoters
to make money through something else. I don't know what.
Promoters will work with big organizations. Now, don't mind me saying this, and promoters that are listening to this, promoters will make a shit ton of money off the tournament, but they will give fighters money that won't even be maybe 0.01% of what they actually make off of the show. Sometimes the fighters don't get paid at all. Sometimes the fighters have to wait for months and months and months to get paid. Fortunately, that's not happened with me, but I've heard about this happening. And it's quite sad, because the fighters are the people that are working the hardest, losing the most, gaining the most, and putting in the most work for this entire event.
Right.
And they don't get remunerated to even a small fraction, maybe not 1/100th of what the promoter or the show actually makes. So even if you have all these big investors, you have all these people helping you, all these people that are getting the name of the fight night out there, they are still letting you fight and treating it as a privilege to fight there.
Yes.
Even when you earn your way there, even when you have a good record, even when you even when you know that, okay, fine, this fighter's good, but I'm going to make him feel like he's not good enough by paying him this measly amount of money, even though I'm earning so much more than what than what I'm letting people believe.
Right.
Again, like I said, fortunately, this has not happened to me. I've not experienced this before, so I feel very fortunate about that. I count my blessings every day that I surrounded myself with good people. But it's very sad to hear that people who work so hard, guys who who separate themselves from their families, take time away from their families, give up on sleep, give up on basic
Dreams.
pleasures in life, they do this with the only hope of maybe making it one day, and they don't even get paid by the fucking promoter, who's a piece of shit.
Right. So that needs to be fixed. And very honestly, India doesn't have a scouting system to send fighters abroad. And I'm saying in whatever capacity, even if it's to send as an opponent, as a can, to build another fighter up, you will still get paid a lot of money outside India. But we just don't have the ecosystem where this is happening. There are no Indian fighters going out there, even if it's as an opponent or a can. In boxing, it's happening. In boxing, people are making money now. In MMA, that scene is just not there. So these two things have to change somehow or the other. And I don't know how to change the latter. Very honestly, I really don't know.
How much does an average pro boxer get for about fighting in India now?
See, if you have a 5-0 record and you're in the lower weights, you will get paid anywhere between $1,000 to $3,000 for a fight.
Whoa,
apart from
that's a lot.
Your flight, hotels, food, and everything.
In India, that is in India.
Wow.
Outside.
That's outside. Okay.
Outside India, okay, that's not a lot.
It's not a lot, but you get paid. In India, you will get paid between $15,000 to $30,000. But
that sucks.
But the average is $5,000 per fight. Very honestly, you can consider that as an average. And a lot of boxers take it up because they want their pro record out there. Because the moment
how many fights can they fight a month?
They can fight as many as they want, but typically fighters don't fight more than one
fight a month.
You won't even get this.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
not like Thailand where fighters fight every week. Thailand is a
Yeah.
different animal itself.
Hmm.
But in India,
Yeah.
no, it
So you
won't
see
happen.
these Muay Thai fighters from across the world. A guy like Joseph Valtellini fighting out of Canada,
Right.
who's an Italian-Canadian former glory kickboxing champion of the world. Within 25 fights total, he fought maybe 12 amateur bouts and the rest were all pro. He won a world title within 25 bouts. Whereas you see guys from Thailand, who have over 300 bouts and don't have a title in sight.
Oh, okay.
They have
Okay.
300 bouts. They've been fighting since they were 8 years old, 7 years old, beating their bodies up, becoming champions, becoming these world class, world beaters, killers, but they just don't have that sort of marketability. So it depends on how well you market yourself in MMA
Right.
or in kickboxing or in any combat sport as a whole.
Exactly. Yeah. So which is what right now my whole objective with this, right? Like someone like Asif, who's an IB Oceania champion, his rate has gone up because he's an Ocean champion. And the more titles we get on people, whether whether it makes sense or not, somehow their marketability increases, and any other promotion who wants to scout them would be able to scout them and pay them that amount of money. So the whole idea is to get that ecosystem in, and unless that comes, fighters will not be able to make a living. There's no way. In India, a lot of things have to change. Even the brands have to come on board. In a sport outside of cricket, which they typically don't.
Of course, yeah. Cricket and kabaddi now, yeah.
A real dark horse of sports is golf. Like golf is it's a very well-paying sport even in India. My strength coach works with a lot of golfers, and dude, those guys are bloody rich. And they're just making so much money, mostly off of sponsors, mostly off of what the tournament pays you. But to tackle the problem of how to beat the non-affordability of trading, the non-affordability of rather not being able to afford to go for these high-level IMAF tournaments for deserving people. Now you see guys in India who win a lot of tournaments, who win the trials but aren't able to go because of their financial situations, which is honestly quite sad. One solution that the president of, I think the general secretary of the UK MMA or English MMA came up with was, okay, let each person pay to get into the trials, the 2,000 or 1,800 rupees that we get for our trials, collect all that money from that weight class, and depending on how many people there are in that weight class, use that money to send the winner of that weight class to the world championships for that tournament. So you get more bodies out there, you get a larger contingent, and you get a higher chance of winning, and you get quality and you get quality fighters going. Oh god, yeah, it's been it's been almost 2 hours. Yeah. Shit.
But it was so nice talking to you, Vaibhav, because we learned a lot about the sport as well, because you've almost been a veteran of the sport, so to say. Like you've been since a long time in the sport, and you've seen the ins and outs of kickboxing and all these fights, what it is to fight different combat sports, right? Because people mostly are stuck in karate till now in India. So what's it to maneuver through all these combat sports around? And also what you were saying, it's after you're done fighting, you're going to be educating people about this, or you're going to be sending prospects, scouting prospects, or doing something for the development of the sport in India. So that was fun talking with you. It was a nice conversation having.
Same here, man. Yeah, 2 hours flew by, man. This was nice.
Yeah, seriously. We don't get to talk about this stuff enough with anybody else in our lives, so I guess time flies by when we're talking about it. Yeah.
So so thank you, Vaibhav. Thank you, Karan, my friend. And ladies and gentlemen, this was the episode with Vaibhav Shetty of the Combat Exchange podcast. And again, as we end this episode, we are here to promote the sport of MMA in India and to educate people about MMA in India, so that more and more people come to know about MMA. And the sport grows in India, and the country, the nation of India grows through the sport as well, right? So thank you for joining
any
us.
Message that sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
Vaibhav, any message that you want to give young fighters listening to this right now? Anything that you want to say?
To be honest, no, nothing specific, man. But so see, only thing I can tell from personal experiences, it's never too late to start. So The earlier you start is better. But if you're a guy who's been training and you think you're 26 and 27 and you think you're old, you're not old. Just jump in. It's a beautiful game, and you'll enjoy the journey. Just jump in and try it out. It's a beautiful game. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Vaibhav. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Hopefully, when this comes out, you enjoyed as much as we enjoyed speaking about everything that we did. Thank you, Vaibhav, for speaking about all the harsh realities of the sport and combat sports in India and across the world. Thank you for suggesting the things that we can do to change all of these things. So until next time, this has been the Combat Exchange with Prashant Pasunuri, myself, Karan Chauhan, and our lovely guest, Vaibhav Shetty. Cheers.
Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, cheers.